So here we are, this is Rob Southworth's virtual 3D reconstruction of what it was like down in the dungeons of 6 Central Street at Ocean Software. I'll take you on a bit of a guided tour, show you round. At the minute I'm standing at the top of the stairs. To the left of me was the locked big fire door that you had to come in to enter the programming section down into the cellars. So we'll walk down the stairs. There was a big ocean perspex sign. It was a bit lower down, but it's in the right place. To the left here, that's the kitchen. That was where numerous cups of coffee were made. Go down here. In here was Gary and Lorraine's office. This is where I had my interview. Gary would sit at the desk at the back there, and that was Lorraine's desk. So when I started, Lorraine didn't work here at that time. It was just Gary. And then along these benches were machines, various different machines where work in progress games were tested by Gary, and the games testers would also use this room to test the faulty games that are coming. So there was machines on there, on that workbench there, and along here. So we'll come out of Gary's office and go into the first programming section. There was a photocopier just here in the hall. So this is the main first programming area. Just there where the Rambo 3 machine is. Well, it was further along. It was near the window. But this is where I sat on my very first day. And I did the Never Go With Strangers screen and Magmax loading screen on the Spectrum and Amstrad. I was at the right of this workbench. For most of the time when I was here, this is where Andy Deacon, where the combat school screen is, he would sit there programming, and Ivan would sit there. Ivan Horn, that's where he sat for most of his time, and he was Andrew's graphics man. Behind us here, this is where Zach and Andy, Commodore 64 programmer and artist. So that was Zach Townsend and Andy Slay. They sat there on the left hand side desk. So we'll come out of here. Around here, that's where Colin Porch sat, and that's where he did Double Take, Head Over Heels on the Commodore 64, Grisor on the 64. That's where he programmed those. There was a fire door there that was never opened. Here, various people sat here. Max, I think this is where Paul Hughes sat, yeah, when he was doing Magmax. But Martin McDonald and James Higgins, Amstrad, programmer and graphic artist, that's where they sat for the duration of that computer there. That was at the end near the window. It was a bit more spread out. There was a music room here. This is where Matthew Cannon, Roger Fenton, Gary Biasillo and Peter Clark, that's where they wrote their tunes. I don't think this was here when I started in 1987. It was added on later on and made this area so that there was a keyboard there. So this was a music room, but it was also being used by the games testers too. Come out of here, back past Colin's desk. In here was Steve Lavash's room, right at the back. So this is where all the arcade games were prepared by Steve, and where the Ocean's computers were fixed. This was full of various circuit boards and soldering irons, and then behind that wall there is where all the bodies were that were buried under the car park because we were in a Quaker building, so there was there was quite a few bodies, an old graveyard apparently, underneath the car park. So we'll come out here. There's an archway here. This is where John O'Brien, or Jobby as he was called, sat. I think Steve Thompson sat there as well at some point. But that's where Chase HQ on the Spectrum and Amstrad was programmed. Down here. That's where John Bramwood sat. So he programmed Renegade and Grisor on the Amstrad 464, sat there. Here, this desk went all along the wall here, so that's not quite right. It carried on along the whole of the wall. This is where Bill Harbison sat for most of his time and did the graphics to Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge. And this is where me and Bill sat together when we worked on the graphics for Dragon Ninja. And this is also where everybody sat to watch the Chegwin Checks It Out sequence, and I didn't dare watch it with everybody else, so I hid behind that door. There was a door there that never opened, so I hid behind that door listening to the broadcast, and then I watched it on my own later on when everyone had gone. In here is Arcade Alley. In the real Ocean there was shelves here with Ocean's magazine archives, and then in front of us here was a metal filing cabinet that held all the Ocean promo goodies like sports bags and cups and things like that, but that was locked to stop us from helping ourselves. So in here was Arcade Alley. Well, that's a pretty good representation of what it looked like. There was 4 chairs, 4 tall like kitchen chairs along here, and there'd be room if an arcade machine arrived and it was in its cabinet, then that would be put at the bottom there. That one's Arkanoid. So what have we got here? That's Athena there. Athena, Renegade, Slap Fight and Operation Wolf. There's a little film clip of Keith Chegwin playing Operation Wolf, and this is just where it was filmed. So we'll come back out of here and go around the other side. So back past John Bramwood's desk, Steve O'Bash's room there, Andy and Ivan, Zach and Andrew Slate, back towards Gary's office, kitchen's in front of us. So we'll go around here. There was a short walkway. This is where I stood to listen to the Chegwin Checks It Out being broadcast. So we're now entering the second section. To the left here was the locked door. We had to get a key because that was the only toilet in the place, which was in part of the Quakers building, so we had to get a key, lock it, and then go to the toilet and then come back out and lock it again. This is the first room. When I started, Mike Lamb sat there at the back. That's where he wrote all of his games from Top Gun up until Batman the movie, as far as I can recall. So Mike Lamb sat there at the back, and then here where the Batman screen is, Ronnie Fowles sat there at first, where he did the graphics for Short Circuit, Arkanoid 1 and 2 and Renegade. And then when Ronnie left after Arkanoid Revenge of Doe, and then Dawn started, so this is where Dawn Drake sat, and she did her graphics, Target Renegade, Robocop, Batman the movie. So Robocop on the Spectrum, so Robocop, Target Renegade, Arkanoid 1 and 2 were all written in this room. Next room was my room, so that's where I sat, and I did the graphics to Whizball, Grisor and the Vindicator. sat there where the Grisor screen is. And then when I started, this is where Steve Watson sat when he was doing Whizball on the Spectrum, and then he disappeared and Paul Owens took over his seat, finished Whizball off, and then Paul did Grisor, Vindicator and Dragon Ninja, sat there. So we'll come out of here. This was a big room, but it had been cordoned off with some false walls. I remember this first little bit, this is where John Palmer was from some of his time anyway. And when I started, this was one big room, and this is where Dave Collier did his games. In this section, I remember Simon and Alan were in here, and then Rick Palmer, sorry, that was Simon Butler and Alan Short were in here. Simon was here where the New Zealand screen is, and Alan sat there near the window, and then later Rick Palmer was in here where he did programme New Zealand Story, Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge, and then on this wall here is where the horror wall was. The horror wall was on this wall here, this big blank wall. So I'll come out of here, back into the hallway. And then down to the last part. So that was Martin Galway's music room, and then when he left it was Jonathan Dunn's. So I'll go in here, look. Music driver. I think that's was that the Whizball music. This is where it was written. And there was a keyboard there under the window. It was a Roland. I used to play on it when I was a bit bored. Annoy everybody. There was a phone there. Gary Bracey, contact switchboard. When I started, this is where Mark Jones Senior was sitting, and he was doing the graphics to Arkanoid on the Commodore 64. After that, Simon Butler sat here, and John Megan sat down there. He was Commodore 64 programmer, and I think Slap. Did he do Slap Fight? I think Slap Fight was. He wrote Slap Fight there, and there was a big Smiths poster on the wall there. And then in the other false section, because these were all really flimsy walls put in afterwards. This is where when I started, Jane Lowe, Commodore 64 graphic artist, she wasn't there long, she sat there, and that was Steve Wahid's desk, Commodore 64 graphic designer. Jane Lowe was also a Commodore 64 graphics designer. I think she did Mario Brothers with Alan, that was her first game, and I know she did the Head Over Heels loading screen, which is on that monitor there. So there we go. Let's go back out. There was a piano here in this hallway, you know, a real piano, just sitting there. Back past Dave Collier's room, Paul Owens and Mark Jones's room, Mike Lamb and Ronnie or Dawn Drake's room, and then that's the way out. Up there. So there's Gary's office. Quick, let's sneak out. He's not there. Let's go home early. Upstairs. Home time. And that concludes a virtual walk round what was the Dungeons of Ocean Software at 6 Central Street, Manchester. Thanks to Rob Southworth for writing this programme. Cheers.